of the sustainable solutions that we see coming out is actually having a severely negative impact on the global south. And by that I mean, poorer countries that are still, providing the resources, providing the cheap labor to business models that will then benefit people in the north. And we really need.
Hi, Xenia. It's nice to have you back in Helsinki. We did the first masterclass with you here a while ago, I think 2 years ago. You were visiting us in May. Nice to have you back here, but I heard you're in Canada now.
I am.
Why Canada? What's happening in Canada?
I moved to Canada for several reasons. The main one was that I started a research project. So I'm studying Indigenous businesses in Canada, and I wanted to be in Canada while doing it. I will be traveling around the country, but I also wanted to experience culture and the place on my everyday life. I'm half Canadian, so also I just wanted to go back personally to be there. Yeah.
I heard you in a conversation, you said you live on an island, right? On the Vancouver Island in a special community.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because for me, that's the reason, well, that's how we should basically live.
Yeah. Since I was going to be traveling anyways, I could basically just locate anywhere in Canada. So I decided to move to Vancouver Island with my family. I read that there was a community there up in the mountains in the forest that have actually come together to invest in buying the forest from forestry companies to preserve the forest and to preserve the life that lives in the forest, working with the Indigenous First Nation, Comox First Nation, on how to take care of the forest, the animals that live there. And I really wanted to be part of that and see how a community like that comes together and tries to share and work together in living in balance with the nature around them.
Well, it sounds what we want to do in the Foreign Pipe program as well, to help the students and also the people who want to create a project to find projects like this when they can do an impact, create an impact, but also be financially successful and create a space for their families and the friends. You mentioned also living with the Indigenous people and working with the Indigenous people. So, and you taught the masterclass about the sustainable business model. So how does this all come together? So why I'm asking this question, because recently I hear all of the stories to sustainability. It's over, it's dead, nobody cares about that. It seems that we hit the wall. So we need a new perspective. Is this a new perspective?
It very much is. So I used to work in business development, traditional, single bottom line, linear business models. And then I moved to sustainable business models, triple bottom line. But basically what we're seeing is that this is just a new way of doing business as usual. And so what we need is a completely different paradigm. And that paradigm needs to be regenerative, because we have passed 7 of 9 planetary boundaries, especially in the global north. We really need to look at the way that we live our lives and the resources that requires, because we have a tremendous, overconsumption of resources. And so I was inspired by Indigenous business leaders who have a completely different take on life, and with that, different values going into building a business. A completely different mindset that doesn't revolve around growth and profit optimization, but they're looking at it from a benefit perspective. And I think that's what we need to learn. We need to understand what it means to look at business from a benefits perspective, not as a business idea, not to commercialize or to do charity, but to actually build businesses where the overall purpose is to create value for everyone.
Okay, interesting. And do you have any examples? Are there any success stories there?
Oh, yes, definitely. A lot of success stories. And I think a lot of examples too that can inspire us. I don't think that we should become Indigenous business leaders. I think that what we should do is be inspired and understand how can that apply to a European context or a Westernized context. And so I think, just to sort of frame this, I think what we have done so far in sustainable business development is to look at so how can we create new products that will, be better, like electric cars and, products that will use fewer resources or renewable energy. I think what we really need to do is like look at what are the businesses that we do need, and then think about how we do them and who they benefit. And so that's what I see with a lot of indigenous businesses, that they have really thought about how can we do this business in a better way. So one of the examples is that we see more and more indigenous businesses moving into industries such as mining, forestry, and oil drilling. And of course, you could say that, well, maybe those industries are not sustainable, or, how can they be beneficial? But for a certain extent, we still need these industries, but we need them to be done better. And for people to lead businesses with a mindset that we are connected to nature. We're not only connected to nature, we are nature, who are connected to the land. They will be more respectful of how to manage the resources in businesses such as a mining business. And they look at it from a holistic perspective. So it's not just about the business industry or the business activities itself, it's about being mindful and aware that if you are doing mining, it will have a negative impact on the land. It will have a negative impact on maybe the water streams. And that will impact the local communities that live in that area. And very often, those communities are indigenous communities. And so when we see there's a company in Canada, an indigenous mining company, we see that they are being very mindful around, like, how can we make sure that we have a minimal impact on the polluting the water? How can we make sure that it is within the business model that we also clean the water, take care of it, and also make sure that this doesn't have a negative impact on the communities that live there? And not only, from a health perspective and environment perspective, but also making sure that, so if we're going to have mining activities in this area, we should also provide jobs for the people who live here. So instead of, putting people that don't come from that area into those businesses, we will actually train people, hire people into these businesses. So we make sure that the value created, financial value as well, benefits the whole community. And besides just choosing, local workforce, they're also choosing to work with other local companies. So they're creating wealth in the ecosystem for other local businesses. And I think, that's a way of thinking where you can see that your business can actually have a lot of positive impact. And that is something that I think, when you have a profit optimization perspective, you don't really think about, like, maybe I should create, work for those who live there, or maybe I should choose other local businesses. You will usually choose, the cheapest workforce, or you will choose the cheapest suppliers, and they could maybe be coming from, like, really far away. But, instead you create as much value as possible in that area. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of indigenous communities living in areas today where we want to do mining or oil drilling or gas or whatever. And I think that when they lead and own the businesses that do perform these activities, they will make sure to take care of the land. They will make sure to take care of the people that live there. And that's the problem with a lot of global industries and global organizations, that they don't have that kind of ownership. They don't take responsibility for local populations because they don't belong there. So we have Norwegian companies still doing oil activities in the north of Canada. They don't have that same connection to the local populations. And so I think, the knowledge and the insights that we can gain from this is to really understand, like, how do you create those connections? Like, we've disconnected so much. One of the most famous sayings in business is, like, it's not business, it's not personal, it's just business. But it is personal. It's personal to a lot of people. And I think if we can make it personal, make sure that it is personal, that we hire local people, make sure that this creates value for local people, that in itself will ensure that our businesses will have a more positive impact.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So I'm excited to hear that also mining, the business like this, is possible to do in a different way. I know, and I've read your book, the iceberg, right? The entrepreneurial iceberg. Should we expect a new edition? Should we expect an update to your business model canvas? Can you tell something about that? Are you working on this as well?
Yes, we're definitely looking into how we can expand on how to work with the sustainable business model canvas from the perspective of regeneration. So it's no longer enough to look at a sustainable business model. You have to look at it from a regenerative perspective. And in order to be regenerative, you have to look outside of your own business model. So one of the mistakes that we've done is that we've looked at our own business from our own triple bottom line perspective. But there's a lot of impact going on in your business model that doesn't necessarily impact you. It impacts, a lot of people around your business, different ecosystems that you're impacting. So we're definitely looking into how can we expand on that. And I don't know if it will be an update to the book or a new book, but I know that one of the things that I really, think is important to get out there is to have more people collaborate with each other, more people to work, across from silos, which is also one of the things that you do here in this project, right? Is to like, how can we have academia and industry work closer together? How can we have people learn from different industries, product categories, across borders as well? Because we do have all of the solutions out there, but we haven't really succeeded in applying them. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we keep working in the existing system of competition, of markets, of capitalism and growth, and it keeps sustaining colonialism. We think that was in the past, but it's still happening today. And a lot of the sustainable solutions that we see coming out is actually having a severely negative impact on the global South. And by that I mean, poorer countries that are still, providing the resources, providing the cheap labor to business models that will then benefit people in the North. And we really need to shift that. We really need to understand how can we build businesses that will take more responsibility, not only locally, but also in any other communities that they are impacting. And one of the industries that is really interesting to look at is the food industry.
Okay.
For that. Because a lot of our supply chain in the food industry today is global supply chains. Even if you're buying local meats, they will have probably eaten food that was produced for those animals in the global South, which costs a lot of rainforest that was devastated because of that. Maybe also local water supplies that was taken away from the local populations to make sure that the fields were got their water. And the thing is, we don't see that cost because of the global supply chain. So we need to have more local food production. We need to talk about the actual cost of the food supply chains. And one of the things that I've also seen with Indigenous companies in Canada, and one of the reasons why I'm there is because there's such a thriving Indigenous economy in Canada. So there's so many great examples there, is Indigenous companies that have shown us that the way that we have built out our food industries today is very is monocultural. Like one great example is the corn that we eat, the yellow corn. Like I love them, but they used to be like rainbows, like really, really beautiful rainbows, different colors, and they used to grow them, together with squash and beans. And these three plants actually like work together when they grow. And when you grow your food in a way where the foods will actually help each other grow, then they need less help, so less chemistry. And because we didn't want to do that, we just like Western, colonizers, they took the corn like, oh, this is yummy. And then they just did long rows of lots of corn. But that way you have to give them a lot more support, a lot more chemistry, and that pollutes the soil, it degrades the soil. And so we have to look back into some of the indigenous knowledge that we did have to take care of the soil, to take care of the plants, and build smaller, more localized supply chains, especially in the food industry, because we have really, really messed things up for ourselves. And it will probably also be one of the industries that will be hit the hardest when we see the effects of climate change. And we're already seeing it in a lot of the world. They're already seeing it, right? So there are companies out there that are already showing us how we can build local supply chains.
Talk about food, and we also, in our project, we talk a lot about food as well, and we have a lot of startups and companies, and students want to do something around food. And in the conferences, in the events we are attending, there's a lot of conversation about organic food and how to prove that this is organic and what is actually organic. And many people talk about the nutritious value. So
Yeah.
it's a cheap tomato and an expensive tomato, they might taste different and they might bring different health benefit. Health benefit is also mental well-being. Mental well-being is a healthy society, good thoughts.
Everything is connected.
Everything is connected. So
Yes.
do you think we can learn something also from the indigenous people in that regard?
Yes.
So you mentioned something already.
Yeah.
But do you see it
Yes.
in the communities?
I think because a lot of indigenous cultures have this deeper understanding of us being nature.
Yeah.
They also have a deeper understanding of our connection to nature. So the health of the soil equals the health of the food that we grow in that soil, equals the health that you will have in your gut, equals the health that, your mental health. And I think that long line of connection from your mental health to your physical health to the health of the foods and the health of the soil, earth itself, allows them to have a conversation internally within their businesses and how they built them out, and with their customers understanding this connection. And I think that that's also something that the way that we have done business so far is that it's very fractured, right? It's isolated. It's in different silos, and we need to have like a deeper and better conversation across from. So this, there's agriculture, there's food production, there's soil health, there's mental health, and all of these professionals should be communicating a lot more with each other. And when you build a business, you should have the perspective of people who understand the soil, who understand the biology, who understands the mental benefits, and so that we can really, teach people, like, why do we need to change? Because this is not just about creating, good and healthy food. It's also about creating food that has a positive impact on the farm where this food is grown. And that means, that we regenerate the soil, that we also invest in the farmer, that we also, pay the actual cost of the activities.
Yeah, you're talking about a very important topic, the real cost of food, and how to convince the customer to buy it.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit more expensive food. So there are two crucial topics, because nobody's buying the good food, nobody's will produce them, because it doesn't make sense.
But we are also subsidizing industries, industrialized farming, and fossil fuels today. And I think so. I don't think it's only about convincing the customer to pay more. I think we should convince governments to have more public policies that would support these business models. Because if we subsidized this type of business model, a regenerative business model, permaculture, all of these great new ideas coming up, then it would be cheaper. One of the reasons why it is cheaper to run an industrialized farm is because we are subsidizing chemicals, we're subsidizing, fossil fuels, we're subsidizing meat industry. And if we subsidize the things that actually will, be healthier for you, but also will be, an investment in the future for the future generations, we wouldn't have to discuss this whole time if this tomato is more expensive than that tomato. And we've created this system where that is the case today. But we have to push, our politicians and our societies to understand that the businesses of the future are the ones that we should be subsidizing. And that means subsidizing businesses that are not putting chemistry into the soil, not using extensive amounts of fossil fuels. It's probably not possible to do it completely without it. And that are also pushing for other industries than the meat industry.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. What's next for you, Xenia? You are in Canada, you're doing the research, important topics. What are your plans for the next few years?
Well, I've just started the project, right? So I'm still building relations and talking to business leaders and understanding how we can do this project in a way that benefits everyone involved. And I think that I'm hoping that we will have more examples in the project as well, because I think is nothing better than being able to talk about examples, because I mean, sustainability and regeneration as well has gotten this, you know, reputation for being idealistic. And, you know, it's great to talk about, but it doesn't actually work in real life. And it is true that we have an entire system and society that does need to change. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these things is already happening. So, you know, just like climate change is happening, people are impacted by it, but the regenerative business models and the business models that benefit societies are actually in place and successful in a lot of places in the world. And we need to find them and tell those stories, because I think that will convince a lot of people to see that this is actually working. It is actually up and running today, even in a system that isn't ideal for them. And we need to understand better, like, how can we support these type of businesses? How can we connect with them? How can we learn from them? I think it's very, very important that we learn from them, but I think it's even more important if we can connect with them and support them, because we need businesses everywhere to succeed, and we need to work together. I think that, you know, the globalization that's been happening so far has been, you know, capitalism and production and supply chains. But the globalization that we need to see in the future is knowledge sharing and redistribution of wealth and resources. So hopefully I will be able to provide more examples as the project goes along. It's running until 2028. So I have plenty of time to learn more, and then of course publish some articles and hopefully also a new book.
Yeah, and also we will be happy to invite you for another masterclass in one of our partner universities.
I would love to.
And thank you very much for this interview, and looking forward to see you again and talk, read the results and talk to you again. Thank you, Xenia.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.